President Pastides, members of the Board of Trustees, members of the faculty, members of the class of 2015, parents and family and friends of this great university. It is a signal honor for me to be given the privilege of delivering this commencement address. You honor my court, my profession, and my family. As I began my outline for these remarks, I was influenced by the desire to reminisce about my days in college, as well as the temptation I'll bet each of you would have if you were giving a commencement address to your alma mater, to maybe lecture these college worthies about how the college should be run. I bet you got some opinions on that. I did when I finished. No one has ever graduated from college without having the strongest possible opinions about what he or she would do if they were appointed president or a trustee. The temptation is almost overwhelming. However, I am very mindful of my role today as your college-approved role model. And yet, I feel rather presumptuous in some ways about using my experience as an exemplar for your future path. So let me try to steer in between the Scylla and Charybdis of reminiscence and didacticism as I present my views on the impact of this four-year experience on your course as you leave these hallowed halls. We often think of the classroom as the crucible for the formation of personal intellectual rigor. But in a broader context, the classroom is the archive of our national experience, the keeper of our heritage, the nourisher of individual rights and personal distinction. In our nation, women and men may be born free, but they cannot be born wise. So it's the task of an education to make the free wise. Institutions like the University of South Carolina are literally the guardians of our culture, the teachers of our people, the foundations of good citizenship, and the dwelling place of free and inquiring minds. Each of you, as members of the Carolina community, have prepared yourself for what you think will be a secure, rewarding, and productive life. You've sharpened your intellects. You've acquired knowledge. You've learned to think for yourselves. But soon, you'll set sail upon a personal adventure in discovery. Far beyond this campus is a world to be helped and improved and made safe for the welfare of all mankind. And what a world it is. International peace and economic stability is threatened from the Middle East and the Ukraine to the European economic community. Nuclear weapons are still spread relentlessly to nations throughout the world, while starvation and disease link the fate of millions in Africa to millions in the Far East. And in our own country, religious bigotry and racial violence are still not past history. It's true that you didn't make the world you're about to inherit, but you have the chance, and you have the challenge, and indeed the duty to do something about it, to leave this world better than you found it. As you become trustees of an awesome world, the question is whether you will help or whether you will simply stand idly by. Each of us will ultimately be judged and will ultimately judge ourselves on the extent to which we have personally committed to improving the human condition. It's true that each of us has a responsibility to develop our own individual talent, but I believe that each of us also has a duty to work for something larger in life than ourselves. The keystone of our national spirit, the source of our national pride, has always been the willingness of each of us to become involved personally, to work for change, to try to make a difference. And you can have no better background from which to face the challenges of the future than having been prepared at the University of South Carolina to fulfill a productive role in our changing world. More than ever in the history of this world, at times like this country and the world need the inspiration and energy of our newest college graduates. Often, at some of the most difficult periods in our recent history, it has been the college students of America who've kept the conscience of this country, who've inspired the people and helped to lead this nation forward. In my college generation, one of the finest chapters in America's concern for the poor peoples of the world was written in the Peace Corps overseas and the VISTA program here at home. But maybe even more importantly, at home, one of the finest chapters in America's commitment to equal opportunity for all people was written by college students in my generation, of which I was one, who embraced Martin Luther King Jr.'s principles of nonviolence and marched through fire hoses, police dogs, and beatings to bear witness to the movement that ensures that voting rights and public accommodations became available to all, regardless of race. Today, one of the finest chapters in the preservation of our environment is being written now by younger Americans working to preserve the magnificent natural resources our ancestors have handed to us and to you. Through achievements like these, newly college-educated young men and women are helping to fire the imagination of this country. They're people no different from yourselves, men and women whose names you may never know, whose pictures you may never see, who are doing things you may never hear of specifically, but they're new doctors, bringing health care to communities that never had a doctor, new lawyers, bringing the Constitution to citizens who never knew there was a Bill of Rights, new teachers, bringing knowledge to students who never had a school. Too often, we fail to see that results like this are quietly taking place. Too often, we see only the darker side of government and society as villains make the headlines and heroes go unsung. Too often, the constant atmosphere of crisis obscures the things that are really right about America and that hold our real hope and provide for our future. You don't have to be the President of the United States or Chief Justice of the South Carolina Supreme Court to make things change. In fact, you don't have to be in public service at all. But my plea today and my message today to you is the plea that you will each consider public service at some point in your career. In taking up the responsibilities of public service, you become participants and not just spectators in shaping the goals of this state and this nation and the world. You are sworn to the service of all people, not just a few who are rich and powerful, but also the many others for whom you may end up being the only voice they'll ever have. There are many paths of action, of service, of sacrifice open to you now. Infinitely more opportunities than seemed available to female college students in 1965 when I sat in your chair and listened to my commencement speaker. A career other than in the academic life was not projected for any women as I graduated. And when I inquired my senior year about how to apply and take the law school aptitude test, no one in the guidance office of the very fine women's college I attended even knew what the LSAT was. But in 2015, your options are boundless. The demography of your graduating class is a fascinating snapshot of where men and women are headed in the 21st century. Your class spans the broadest range of liberal arts, science, engineering, and so many other disciplines. I note with great admiration that each of your majors is a sign of the intellectual life of the mind and how it's pursued for its own merit, but also as a springboard to active participation in the working life of the real world. The bottom line is that an education at the University of South Carolina in the year 2015 is at once more academically rigorous and more focused on the real world skills than such an education was in any sense 50 years ago when I graduated from college. That said, you should know that your academic training alone is not what will endure from these very special years. You have developed a sense of your own special worth in our society. You have been given a profound sense of confidence in your ability to succeed, which is uniquely acquired at the University of South Carolina. And as you assume a place of leadership in your family, in your community, in this world, you will find over time that many of your successful contemporaries will have been educated here. Your membership in the University of South Carolina's class of 2015 will define you always. This is a bond that will endure for all of your life. So I would suggest that with your expanded opportunities, your responsibilities are even greater than were my generation's. You can serve your country if needed in defense of American interests around the world. You can also serve your country through dedication in classrooms, hospitals, courtroom, every level of government service and private enterprise. You are needed in the inner city and in the rural farmlands, to helping others to help themselves. There is not a person in this graduating class who does not possess a skill which can help transform the lives of people here at home and around the world. Your generation must come to grips with an interdependent global economy. You must chart the courses for the development of the internet and find the cure for cancer and AIDS and protect the world from the scourge of pandemic diseases such as Ebola and SARS and MERS. You must design new communities and find dependable sources of safe energy. Your generation must find happiness in self-discipline and not self-indulgence. And surely it is the task of your generation to restore the strength and vitality of the American promise that all lives matter. I wish for you the choice of a vocation that will give you a workshop of the mind as well as a platform for shaping the destinies of others. And though I very much believe in the idea that we make our own opportunities in life, I am very mindful today of these words from the Apostle Luke. For unto whomsoever much is given, much shall be required. And to whom much has been committed, of them we shall ask the more. So let me take a moment to make a special bid for your consideration of a career in my three chosen professions. First, family member. Second, lawyer. And third, government servant. The American family in the 21st century embraces many kinds of permanent relationships joyfully. You will find that the career of spouse, parent, or family member in this new century and beyond is by necessity a cooperative partnership. The partnership may include you, a spouse, you and your children, you and your partner, and increasingly, it will also include a dependent older parent or relative. You will need to work very hard to make family life a cooperative adventure without placing any member of your family in more responsibility than he or she can bear. Success in this career is entirely the product of your best intellectual efforts, teaching skills, leadership ability, management acumen, and spiritual strength. And that family will be defined by relationships of all kinds. For me, the support of my spouse and two daughters defines the Gene Toal you see today. Some irreverently describe my approach to the 47-year partnership of Toal, Eisen, and Monsager as grounded in the trenches of gender warfare, where I certainly spent a lot of time. And in that place where baking biscuits and watching the Braves and the Gamecocks meets writing Supreme Court opinions and playing in family golf tournaments. But each of you, by electing to matriculate at the University of South Carolina, has selected an educational experience which also uniquely prepares you for governmental service and leadership. I challenge the popular notion that politics and government service is anything less than an honorable profession, a necessary and noble task of free men and free women. And what we need beyond the year 2015 is not less politics, but more. My experience in government every day reinforces my conviction that our system will stand or fall on the capacity and willingness of each of us to give some portion of our life to public service. Can you imagine what the legislative halls would be if you decided to serve and made some real attempt to have every South Carolinian guaranteed a free college education. You could make a difference in something that would change the entire economy and have people graduating who are not burdened with debt. And that's just one of the many issues. You can make a difference if you decide to be involved. Now let me finally say a word about a career in the law. I've been enormously blessed to be a trailblazer for women in the legal profession. I've witnessed many major changes in my 47 years at the bar. When my Carolina Law School class took our oath of admission, October the 3rd, 1968, women comprised less than 1% of the lawyers in South Carolina and less than 5% of the total licensed lawyers in the United States. And it was very much an inside ballgame profession for many people who were second, third, fourth generation lawyers. At that time in South Carolina, only 10 women were in the active practice and only 3 did any trial work. When I became a lawyer, I could try a case to a jury, but I could not even sit on a jury. Women did not become allowed to sit on state juries until 6 months after I began to practice law. But as opinion leaders and students of government structure, you will assume a major responsibility for the legal system in the 21st century. If the American public ever decides that the system for enforcing the rule of law has failed, and it teeters now in terms of public confidence for a lot of very good reasons, the very existence of the rule of law is imperiled. And with the demise of the rule of law, ordered society disintegrates. Our complex system of economic, social, and spiritual relationships is in the most fundamental way dependent on the health of the social compact the Constitution defines and the court system embodies. I hope none here will ever forget what a marvelous and challenging thing it is to be an American. It's not a lucky break or an accident of history. It's a status available to all and not just those born here, or should be. And you can make that so as well. It's an enduring responsibility to keep this country free, open, and secure, a sounding board for new ideas, a safe harbor for personal and political expression, a generous and compassionate nation among the nations of the earth, a country based on faith and a reverence for things we cannot see or fully understand. So be thankful for your professors and for the knowledge you have gained. Be grateful for the efforts of your parents and your families and your friends and for the sacrifices they've made to bring you safely to this threshold of the future. Above all, be worthy of your stewardship and the promise of this land. Give back something to your country and your community in return for the opportunities they have given you. The great Southern writer Thomas Wolfe once wrote, "So then to all persons their chance to work, to be themselves, and to be whatever thing their humanity and their vision can combine to make them. This seeker is the promise of America." I congratulate you, 2015 graduates of the University of South Carolina, and as you go forth from this time and place, I hope that each of you will carry forward the golden promise that is the essence of a college education. If you do, you will perform a great service for this great institution. You will perform a great service to your country. This is your challenge. This is your legacy as seekers of the promise of America. Thank you and Godspeed.